Ayo, and thanks a lot. I'm very excited and happy to be here to answer your questions regarding Jonathan's webinar and Embrace Fully Responsive Design using Wix Studio. I think first we go and jump right into the editor and have a quick recap of what Jonathan has built throughout the webinar. So he created this site. I followed Jonathan's steps, and I got like pretty much the same. So in this site, what we have the first section. It is scaling proportionally regarding the responsive behavior. I think most of the elements are here. So if I go and select the section and open the inspector panel, I can see that the responsive behavior selected here is scaling proportionally. And I can see the measurement of this section right here in pixels. Same goes for here for the text component. Text component is also scaling proportionally. And I can also see here the width in pixels, the measurement of the component currently. And the font size also in pixels here, while it is scaling proportionally. The idea is that any element that you would add to state, the default is scaling proportionally, so you get like responsiveness out of the box. But you can select different responsive behaviors for each component, and each component has its own responsive behaviors options right here in the dropdown. So you can see that each one has some different ones. Let's say text has wrap, and the video component has some other options. It doesn't have wrap because it is not wrapping. It has stretch, which text doesn't have. So like each component has its own options. So everything here is scaling proportionally except for the arrow that Jonathan set to fixed. And you can see that it is actually the same size in all of the breakpoints, which makes sense for this small arrow. So that's for the first section. And the second section has a bunch of layer tools together. It is more complex. Here demonstrated like a grid. So we have the cells of the grid. We have 3 cells here. This big one that has like a stack inside, and another one with a stack here, and the image here, which is stretched to the cell. So we talked about the grid and the options of sizing of the grid and the gaps of the grid here, and the layout options here. And also we have we have talked about the stack, and the stack is like a very easy tool to use for combining elements together in sort of a group where they have distance from each other and they keep together throughout the whole responsive behavior when it's scaling up and down. If I have like components with different responsive behaviors, it keeps them together with a distance that can be set in pixels or any other responsive unit. So in this case, we have the title, which is scales proportionally, and we have the text, which is wrapping. On the other hand, we have here a little bit more complex stack, which is a nested one. We have these buttons here, which are stacked in the horizontal direction, and they have been fixed behavior, both, and they have this gap between them. I can change the gap from here or from here and the inspector panel. This horizontal stack of these 2 buttons is wrapped inside another stack, which is bigger and holds these 2 text elements together with it. So we have also here the wrapping text and the scaling text. The whole section is scaling proportionally. And we have the grid gaps between them, and we have the padding all around that creates the frame around this grid and pushes it to the center this way. So it all scales up and down, but each component has its own unique responsive behavior. And it behaves all together very nicely and keeps it beautiful throughout all the breakpoints. And also, Jonathan did some adjustments in the breakpoints and changes the layout. We can see here on the mobile, the layout is divided to rows instead of the collage that we have here. And I think this is about this section. And the next and last section was this one, where Jonathan used the magic AI, responsive AI tool, where he just positioned the elements in the composition that he desired, and then click the magic tool here, this responsive AI tool, and then all of the components set to be together in their own responsive behaviors throughout all the breakpoints and set to be inside the layout tools. So we created the responsive AI tool created the grid here and a stacking side and another stacking side. So it is creating all the complexity for you magically like that out of the box. After creating this layout, Jonathan, I think he did some minor adjustments in the mobile for the button, but that's it. It seems like with very quickly there was a full responsive section created throughout all the range. So that's it from the recap. I think we can jump into the questions.
Great, thank you so much. And I know this is a very general overview. We have started running some more in-focus webinars on specific features, so be on the lookout for those. So let's dive into our top questions. The first of which is, can you explain how to set proportions of the grid columns?
Yeah, sure. So I'll go back to edit mode, and we go here to this section where we have the grid. So the grid has these handles here. If you go between these columns, you can see that pops this handle. So when I grab it from here to here, the grid changes its proportion, also for columns and also for the rows. You can also change the rows proportions over here. And so this is, I think that this is the most direct and easy way to do it. Just here on stage, what you see is what you get. And if you desire to achieve like a more specific combination of units and go like into an advanced mode and get a little bit deeper with it, so you can select the section and go here by the sizing, open the advanced size, and now under the layout, you will find the grid, the grid sizing here. So you have the rows and the columns, and this is the actual CSS grid behind this grid. So you can see the measurements in CSS units. It requires to understand a little bit about the CSS units here and understand like what you're doing. I can explain a little bit about this specific unit FR which is the default for columns, for the grid columns. So FR is like a relative unit that relates to one another. Like I have two columns here, and I'd set it back to 1 and 1, and now they are both equal. So if I have two columns that they are both 1FR, they are both the same. If I go to the second column and set it, let's say, to 2, now it is double than this column. So each column is addressing the other one. And now this one is double. If I go set this one to be 1 and this one to be 2, now this one is double than this one. So now I have like a third and 2/3, right? So this is the FR very quickly. But I think for most cases, I think the easy way is just do it and like that and set it like the way you want to visually. So you don't need to mess with like specific and very advanced CSS units. But if you are like into it, we have on the Academy more information about it, and you can learn more about the advanced grid options. So feel free to do it.
Great, thank you. And we have another question that came in. How would you set an exact distance from the arrow at top from the bottom? So
the arrow here, so that's a great question. I think it's a good opportunity to explain a little bit more about position in general. So you know what? I'll add another section here. I'll copy this arrow over here to show it. So when I drag any element into the stage and I drag it around, you can see I have some indications of the position, right? I have these blue indications. So I have the indications here on the section itself, and I have some indications here under the position box, and I have this box over here, which represents the position. So the position is built out of two parameters. One is the docking, which is calculated like automatically. So now it is docked to the left and top. The docking means to which direction the component is addressing to. So in this case, it addresses the top and left. If I drag it to the right, you see that automatically it changes to be addressing to the right. So it is changing all the time automatically. And the logic here says on the vertical axis that it will be to the top, 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 top. If it's in the middle, it is docked to the middle. And if I drag it downwards, now it is again docked to the top, because everything needs to be scaling proportionally from the top by default. But if you want to be addressing this component to the bottom, I could set it like that again to the center. And I go here and just click the button. And now you can see that it is docked to the bottom. I can see the margin indication here along the stage. And the margin is the distance of the element from the docking direction. So first thing that you need to notice is the distance. And the distance by default is percentage. So the other position is scaling. I can also go here and change the unit, let's say to pixel. And now the position is fixed. So fixed, I mean, like the distance is kept fixed from the button. And I can see that there's been a checkbox here that was checked on, that now once I did the manual docking, it is checked off. And this checkbox means that the element would now stop to be auto-docked. So when it is docked to the bottom now, I did it manually, it will stay docked to the bottom no matter where I drag it. So now let's say I want it here. And let's say I take this section and color it in orange. And now we can see the arrow from bottom, right? And it's 61 pixels from bottom. And now even when the section is scaled up and down, the distance from bottom is kept fixed with distance of 61 pixels. So that's that's a position in general. I hope that was clear.
It's very cool. And this is a question that we're getting a lot. What is the difference between PX and PX asterisk?
Yeah, I get it. So any component here, you can see in many parameters in the inspector panel, this pixel asterisk unit. So what it means, as I said before, like it's the measurement at the current resolution I have now, I can see visually on stage. So now the editing point is 1280. And at this point, the 1280 point, I can see that this text component width is 721 pixels. And this is the current measurement of this text component. When this text component will be scaling up and down, this measurement changes. So if I go to the other breakpoint, I see that the measurement is changing, and it is changing all the time. Same goes for the pixel asterisk here with the font size. You can see now this font size is 76. This is the actual font size at this current specific resolution, and it will be changing all the time since it is scaling. If you see pixel without the asterisk, it means that it is actually really, really fixed. So if I select this component and set it to be fixed, you'll see that this measurement here would change from pixel access to real pixel without the asterisk. So that's a difference.
Okay, great. And the next one that we have is, how can we set the hero section to fit any screen?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that is like a really it's like a good design example, because I think this section in the design intent, I feel that it is good to be fulfilling the full screen always. It's like a big hero section. I have these centered elements inside, which is taking the whole composition, and it would be perfect if it would fit any screen. If you go here to the live site, you'll see that it seems to be fitting to the screen, because that's the resolution it was designed by. But if I go here and change, you see that it doesn't fit my screen, right? It's like just scaling proportionally up and down. So for fitting any screen, I can easily select the section, and instead of scale proportionally, just set it to be fit to screen, and then it would fit to screen. In this case, I need to make sure that the docking and the position, as I explained before, is in the right place. So for the arrow, I would use the same thing that we did before, actually. I would drag it down here, and I would dock it to the bottom, because I don't want this whole margin from the top yet. Then it won't be aligned correctly. I want it to be in a specific space and distance from the bottom, as we did before. So I would just dock it to the bottom, and now I would get, you can see how the dimensions change. Let's try to publish. And you can see that after we publish the site, you see that that I would get a full screen, and no matter what position do I, no matter what screen dimensions I have, I can change it. I think I have some color. Okay, yeah. Let's see. Okay, now it seems different, right? And it fits my screen no matter what size and dimension the screen is. So it's much more good, I think, for this design case, and for many hero sections to be set to fit the screen.
Amazing. That looks great. Another question we have, and it might be our last question, depending on time. Is it possible to set a minimum size for elements?
Yeah, sure. So for this option, we need again to go to the advanced panel. I will show you exactly what. Let's say I will use here a paragraph, I think. I think that for text components, it's like the most common case to use the minimum size and maximum size also. So if I take this text components and it is wrapping because it is connected to my site theme, and my site theme for text is wrapping. So I would just put it here on the center. And now if I drag these handles, and you could see that that the text component in some point could become too narrow. If I click preview, I hope you see it better. You see, at some point it becomes too narrow. So maybe I want to set it to have some minimum size so it won't get too narrow. So for that, I would just go back to edit. And here again, I will open this toggle. And here I have the, I can see here in the advanced sizing, the actual CSS behind the scenes. So the width is in percentage of the text box. And I have the option to set minimum width and maximum width. So let's say I set some minimum width here of, let's say, by default, I get the current size. So I'll set it to be, let's say, 300. And I go back to preview. You will see that at some point it will stop scaling down. It would say as if it was fixed. So it is fluid this range and stops being fluid at that point. And if I go here and go back to changing this one off, back to the easy sizing, I say. So the text component responsive behavior is now, you see that it is mixed. Why it is mixed? Because it is wrapping and it has some range with it that it is fixed because we set the min width. So it is like a combination of fluid and fixed. So it is mixed. That's it.
Great. And I think if we go quickly, we do have time for one more question.
Yeah, sure.
So when can I use margins? And when can I use margins and when can I use padding? What's the difference?
Okay, that's a great question too. So I think the best way is to show it like with the container because it has both. So container, as we saw before, the position uses the margins for elements, and padding is the option here. By the way, it's a bit hidden inside here. So if I click on the container inside here, I have the padding. So let's say I would set some padding, let's say 10%, and set it to be in all directions together. And now you see I have this box. This is container box. And I would use the padding for cases in which I want, like, it's like a general rule for this component, like a layout rule for this component where I have this frame around, like we did here. Why did we use it here? Because we wanted this frame around. Why we did use the padding here? Because we wanted the frame around. We wanted like to have a specific distance from the edges and to make like the border bigger. So I have the same. This way I could also control and have the same size of the frame here and same size of the frame here, and I get the like a design system of layout throughout my page. So I can use padding all around, and then I don't need to think about like what's the distance with the margins at all, because I have it already fixed here. I have the margins, I have the padding. The padding is 10% all around. I can put some elements inside, let's say this shape, and I can just align it to the top to the left like that. I'll add, let's say, another thing here, like a button, and it would just fit to my design system easily. I can use easily the alignments, and everything would be set together with the same layout rules. And opposite to margins, and with margins I can set and define for each element like separately. Like if I don't want this shape to be exactly on the edge, I want it with some distance, then it has its own margin and its own free position. Like if I want this whole box to be like somewhere here, I won't use the padding for that. I would use margin because it's more easy. It's like just really drag it and use it as it is.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I think those are all the questions we can get to today. We're nearly out of time. If you have any questions we haven't answered, feel free to go to the new Wix Studio forum and join the Wix Studio Discord community, and feel free to ask away. Our product managers will be more than happy to help you out. And of course, our Academy is always there as a resource for you to get more information. A recording of this webinar will be uploaded to our Academy and YouTube channel. Also, and this is super important, if you have any feedback, please let us know in the feedback form. There will be a link to the feedback form in the chat. Thanks so much again. Bye, everyone. Take care. And thank you, Inai.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.